Hi, Sendevils. My name is Amanda Gomez, and I'd like to give a quick overview of the achievement gap within the United States, particularly in Chicago. According to this week's lesson, in the Lesson 4 lecture, The Achievement Gap refers to the disparity of achievement between various student groups and exists especially between groups that differ in socioeconomic status, race, ethnicity, and gender. So I believe that there are a lot of causes in the achievement, a lot of things impact the achievement gap, but some of the things I talked about in my discussion are that teachers are forced to focus on the wrong skills, such as test-taking skills related to standardized testing. We learned in this week's lesson that Paul Tough, in his book How Children Succeed, he talks about how teachers are forced to focus on standardized testing rather than teaching students what really matters, such as their character and what to do when they fail, how to handle that, and how to, stay positive and have that kind of mindset. Furthermore, I believe that another main cause of the achievement gap is the socioeconomic status. When a student lives below the poverty line, they often deal with much greater burden and stress than those who do not. Growing up in a stressful environment is said to have a long-lasting effect on the developing brain. Children under the poverty line have difficulty developing concentration skills and are easily distracted. This creates just a domino effect because teachers ultimately don't want to be at schools in which students are stressed out all the time and are put in households where they have to worry about stuff they shouldn't be worried about, such as financial situations. I was privileged enough to attend school in a suburb outside of Chicago. Naperville is where I attended school, the city in which I attended school, and it's supposed to be one of the most prestigious school districts within Illinois. I participated in a sociology experiment when I was attending this high school, and I was able to witness what it's like to be to attend an inner city school, such as the ones in Chicago. The school district in Chicago has a huge achievement gap because a lot of the students are living in poverty, and with poverty comes violence and family issues, drugs, and the school district was not providing enough resources for these students, and it just did not make them feel like that they mattered. I also, when I attended this school in Chicago, I noticed that a lot of the students there were minorities. They were predominantly Hispanic or African American. My mom was in inner city school, and she expressed to me how segregated and territorial the city of Chicago is. This stems from the history of Chicago and how when a lot of African Americans migrated to Chicago, there was real estate laws put into effect, and African Americans were only allowed in certain areas. They were prohibited from buying real estate in certain areas in which a lot of white families lived and white communities were living. To this day, it is still very segregated and one of the most segregated cities in the country. My proposed solution to closing the achievement gap would be to make schools more diverse and change boundary lines. I've witnessed school districts, politicians getting involved, not wanting to change school district lines because they don't want low-income students to attend their schools in fear that with that they're going to bring violence and drugs and all their issues. In order to implement my solution of changing boundary lines, I would need families to get involved and to speak up, to have families from low income families, attend city meetings and have their voice be heard. Families need to vote and understand that no child deserves to be left behind and that every child deserves a good quality education. As I said before, the obstacle I'd be facing when implementing the solution is politicians. They want their good schools to stay good without, low-income students possibly bringing drugs or violence to their schools. In order to overcome this obstacle, I would need teachers to really step up and help parents to understand that with good relationships, their students will only become successful, and they will learn how to really communicate with others who are different and connect with those students that are living under poverty. The outcome that I hope to achieve with my proposed solution is, I want students to feel worthy of a proper education. I hope this creates a drive for success and ultimately decreasing the achievement gap between income and race. I believe with the change in boundary lines, students will learn to be more welcoming of others and stereotypes can be challenged. Many, for example, believe that minorities are just not smart, and this is just simply not true. This is important to me and my community because children are our future. By setting children up for success, they will believe in themselves and will have a greater chance to contribute to society in meaningful ways. Closing the achievement gap would prove that we have equal opportunities despite race, economic status, and gender, and that the American dream is equally attainable for all. Thank you so much for listening.